Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility and our affinity group Native and Indigenous Leaders at AmeriCorps signature event for Native American Heritage Month, honoring our ancestors through service. My name is Amelia Ryba. I am one of the DEIA specialists in ODEIA. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My physical description is a white woman with brown hair, green eyeshadow, and I'm wearing a green sweater. I am speaking with you all today from Washington, D.C., which is the ancestral home of the Piscataway and Anacostan people. Today, we're going to acknowledge and highlight how the journeys of our ancestors led to how we show up in the world today. Honoring our ancestors through service is carrying on the legacy of life, sacrifice, and purpose. Before we get started, let's review the agenda. First, we'll open the celebration with a blessing and words from Michael Garcia. Then we'll hear opening remarks from AmeriCorps board member Alvin Warren and AmeriCorps CEO Michael D. Smith. Following their opening remarks, we'll have an AmeriCorps alumni and volunteer panel facilitated by Paula Van and Vivia Aguilar. Finally, we'll close the event with Brooke Crosby sharing and celebrating our Native and Indigenous program highlights. Now I'm going to pass the mic to our wonderful MC for this event, Cecilia Ward. Over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Amelia. Kuwatsi Opa. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited to have you here today. My name is Cecilia Ward, and I am an enrolled member of the Pueblo of Laguna, located just a little ways west of Albuquerque, New Mexico. But today I'm calling in from Northern Virginia. So let's go ahead and warm up that chat. We'd love to know where you all are from and what program you're representing. I'm the intern for the Native American Affairs team here at AmeriCorps, and I am so honored to be the host for the signature event. Well, I know my ancestors have sacrificed so much to bring me here in front of you today. I strive every day to honor them in pockets of my life through work, prayer, and kindness. Which is why I'm so excited to dive into the celebration with you all. To get us started in a good way, I'm pleased to introduce my Pueblo relative, Michael Garcia. Mike, who is from Santa Ana, Pueblo, has found his calling as language teacher for his people. He teaches his traditional Keres language through the power and beauty of song. His students learn about connecting their spiritual selves with their body movements to the drum beat, and how that connects them to the land, people, culture, and traditions. Mike is also the creator of the podcast Life of a Dog on a Res, where he shares funny, cringeworthy, and inspirational stories from his beloved Pueblo homelands. If you'd like to listen in on his episodes, you can find a link to his podcast in the chat. He is a traditional song maker, moccasin maker, storyteller, and is instrumental in revitalizing the traditional Pueblo game of shinny stick. Now, I don't want to take up any more of his time. The floor is yours, Mike.
Thank you, Cecilia. Kuwatsi hopa payakyap sit transha troto na hanot sit tanya after sasish. I would like to just say thank you to Cecilia and all that work for AmeriCorps to have me come on today and share blessings with all of you on this first day of November, Native American Heritage Month, as well as within our Pueblo culture, we celebrate our what we call All Souls Day, which our ancestors come back and visit for the next 2 days, and it kind of mirrors what the other societies do in terms of Dias de los Muertos. Although our celebration, our remembrance of our ancestors goes back in time immemorial. But before I get started with a little, I would like to just offer a prayer of blessings to everyone that is here from across Indian country and across the world. If you could bear with me just for a minute. Science game at the Dios and Umote Shoshoiti Samasich game at the Dosi Katep, at the Haiti or the Naki teacher squares, at the Dios and at the TH Genu to draw Tromata, Dios the Hog Kaitra, Dios at the Shumo Tower Kaitra, Dios and at the Sutra game at the Dios, so now I did a Diosi hope take you at the Kohato Mighty and Kuna, see it's an attack we are course out there at the oak. Kutruis te askunam ta shkakiumes ti te ti haweti na te kutru ta isiko Dios na ta Zahiti namaikatsi hiani shewistani wemaikatsa tiuatsa skunamtan shiskakyumastite skuistia atsa hoisinate ekotro atsa kaikas tiusinasi sanokatatinasi paikiam sirtran sheshotona hanor sitanye yaste sashe atsa hostio atsa stimahtai katsu tamaya haaste skuut stakki sochen istua wistra ktrets tiutsa weoskamatikono atsa tuo iani kaasha siuit atsa juhana koikot kasheidi paikiam atsa hosuutu teanya atsa tiusina atsa ushaas tauat hushat ja shaarti heusatranais stuet kiksuk kusuk hasuk atsa kiaska atsa tiusi majani kupista atsa stiu nakkisets kun haikami tiuja chamia kiano reto ka huiko iani kotrusta iani kun atsa haitiesa no haitiesa Esempio se numajani kupista se kupak tinye utani tiotroma hina tiosin etsa rawasan trawanu rawa kutekua ta etsa rawa etsa oise etsa kotrunam stan shishkakyumastita etsi hoisina te kotros. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone coming here today, and in my blessings, I just wish everybody well for the gathering that we are here today. Like I mentioned earlier, my name is Michael Garcia. I come from the Pueblo of Santa Ana, out in New Mexico. We're just north of Albuquerque, about 25 miles north on the homelands of the Pueblo people throughout the Southwest. We are Pueblo people within the area. There's also other tribes within the area, the Navajo Nation, as well, the Apache Nation. But this is the ancestral homelands of our people. I am on my reservation, my homeland, and I come to you today on a very special day, actually. Like I mentioned earlier, we do celebrate our All Souls Day, which at this point, we honor all our ancestors that have come home to visit us, and we welcome them home. Of course, they come in spirit, but we have the belief that they're here with us, and they bring blessings from wherever they're back in their third world, what we call Shipa. They bring the blessings back to us. But a little story about, just to kind of reflect back on who we are as Pueblo people. There was a time that they actually came back in actual physical form, but at that time it was too hard for the people to let them go back. They couldn't stay in this third world, or this fourth world. So it was the people wanted to go with their relatives that have passed on, and it was just too hard for them. So the spirits decided, that no longer would they come back in physical form, but in the spiritual form. But we do have that strong belief that they are back here with us for the next 2 days, and we offer them food, we offer them the things that they liked in this world, and we get blessings from them, and we send them back. They will return back to our place of emergence tomorrow. It varies from tribe to tribe, but it's basically the same timeline that we all follow. And like I mentioned earlier, the Day of the Dead, which is recognized to a lot of indigenous cultures down in Mexico, South America, whatnot, is goes back into time, which is a connection that we all share as one people. We are all one people. We all emerge from basically the same place. We all, as indigenous peoples and even non-natives, we all have a emergent story, a place of where we come from. And for that, the sacrifices that our ancestors made, I know that with the AmeriCorps, we're celebrating the service to our ancestors, what they put forward. And I always believe that from our emergence in the Pueblo culture, the way we came into this world, we were able to come into this third world, from the third world to this fourth world on the sacrifices of our ancestors. And everything that they done from that point on, from their emergence to this day, was because of us here, and to carry on to continue what they started, to bring a better world, better understanding as people of the world, not just natives, not just but people of this what we call Kinikaispich, which is our the upper world. So with that said, I understand, AmeriCorps I am a bit familiar with AmeriCorps, and I appreciate the service that the volunteers and the individuals that work for the program, for the organization put forward to bring that understanding. I really thank you for that. And I also encourage you to keep doing the work that you do, because what we do is for the next generations and the generations to come, whether it's in language, whether it's in education, whether the sacrifices our ancestors made from the very beginning to this point was because they wanted us not to go through the hardships that they went through. And it's the same with us, as many of us are parents and grandparents. Many of us soon will be parents, but it carries on. We want our children, our grandchildren, not to sacrifice what we did and make their lives easier. And they would just continue that what our ancestors started. So with that said, I appreciate you having me come here and bless the opening of the gathering here. And I know that I have a couple minutes left, so my timer has went off. But I'd like to just share a quick song with everyone here. I am a traditional Pueblo man. I am closely tied to my culture, my religion, my beliefs, and I firmly believe in the power of song. The power of a song has the ability to heal most wounds, if not all wounds. And I'm a living testament to that. So I just want to share a quick lullaby that I made for my son when he was growing up, and it just speaks about my language and the beauty of my language. So without further ado, this is a lullaby I made for my son. Ooh, hey, yeah. Ooh, hey, yeah. Ooh, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Kikyo kyo kawe stimayo aise henora kya koyota aise kiniya henati heyashika chanoma Prioma Ua hey Ua hey hey yeah Una kya Jie pinayo I see henora Christo chokoyota I see kiniya Enati heyashika chanoma Jie spioma Ua hey Ua hey hey Ua hey. I use song to teach my language, and this song I speak about how the Oriole, the Baltimore Oriole, how the bluebird, how the cardinal, and how the magpie sit on top of our sacred mountains and watch the clouds and the fog emerge and sing of how beautiful it rains and the waters flow across our Pueblo lands and across the world. So I just wanted to share that song with you as a blessing for today, and I really appreciate again you going forward in service to serve the greater community. And thank you again, Cecilia, for this wonderful opportunity. And I wish you well, and I bless all of you with my prayers and my all the spirits that I carry from my people of Santa Ana, of Tamaya, and everyone have a great day.
Wow, that was incredible. Thank you so much, Mike. I feel like I really needed that. Being thousands of miles away, I feel very at home right now. But moving on, I'd like to introduce AmeriCorps leadership on the call. We will hear from another Pueblo relative, AmeriCorps board member Alvin Warren, and AmeriCorps CEO Michael Smith. Thank you guys for being here today. Over to you, Alvin.
You're welcome, Cecilia. Umbiag and Sangiti, good afternoon. My name is Alvin Warren. I'm from Santa Clara Pueblo. First, I just want to say, Michael. Really appreciate you joining and your song. I'm actually in New Haven, Connecticut, because my son comes to school here, but I live in Santa Clara Pueblo, and I'm very proud to serve on the board of directors for AmeriCorps. I'm really excited to see how many of you have turned out for this event. I have to tell you that I'm really grateful to all of our staff at AmeriCorps, and particularly our CEO, Michael Smith, who you'll hear from in a second. I feel like we have a strong team from the board to our staff that really is supporting our work in tribal nations and in indigenous communities. We've done so much this year, thanks to our leadership, thanks to our staff, but especially thanks to you all who are doing work in communities. And, the theme of this, of today is honoring our ancestors. And I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think of, Michael, you're a language teacher, and I helped to co-found Capo Community School, which is our dual language school in Santa Clara. And I was trying to think, what's a word for service in our Tewa language? So Michael and I speak different languages. I speak the Tewa language. And I couldn't put it like into one single word, but it reminded me of something, that a set of our core values that we say in our prayers and in our oratory, our speeches, is they're always telling us, and what that literally means is respect and love and care for one another and help one another. And it's something that we're taught growing up. And when I thought about, well, that's what service is, and that's what we're all doing. We're helping each other, motivated by our respect and our love and our compassion for each other and for our communities. And I can't think of a better way to honor our ancestors, because all of you who are showing up in AmeriCorps funded and supported programs are doing just that, whether it's working with children, with our elders, whether it's helping with the protection of our land, strengthening our languages, helping improve the health of our communities, serving our veterans. All these things are exemplifications of that love, that compassion, that helping one another. So I'm just grateful for all of you, for the work that you're doing. And I'm excited to be a part of AmeriCorps and for not just what we're doing to support you now, but how we continue to strengthen our partnerships with tribal nations and indigenous communities moving forward. So thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Alvin. And now we'll hear from our CEO, Michael Smith.
Thank you, Alvin, for being here today. But more importantly, thank you for the way that you lead on our board. Our board, I think everybody knows, is a volunteer board. And for those of you that have experience with volunteer boards, sometimes people give the very limited amount. But Alvin takes this work so incredibly seriously. Has been a source of wisdom and support and drive and urgency, not only for the work that we do with our tribal nations and our native communities, but so very much on the work that we're doing on our financial and operational reform. And he's just a really good human being. So Alvin, thank you for being here today and all you do to help us get things done. Michael, also thank you for your song and for your blessing and your words of wisdom. I am grateful for the way that you helped us to launch this important celebration today. I'm also here in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm actually in my home office in Northern Virginia, which is also the home of the Piscataway, Anacostan, and Potawatomi people and many others. We're all here celebrating the AmeriCorps' 30th anniversary this year. We are doing this at a time where we're celebrating our 30th anniversary, which means we're also celebrating our 3 decades-long partnership with Native nations and our commitment to uphold our federal trust responsibility. In some places, I know that partnership is even older. I think about our work with our VISTAs, our senior companions, and our foster grandparents, serving our Native youth and our elder generations, and they've been doing that long before AmeriCorps existed. So I am grateful for that. Together, we have worked to grow AmeriCorps' investment in Indian country, including $7 million in new investments this year alone for tribes and Native-led nonprofit organizations. And we're continuing to work on reducing barriers to service in Indian country so that we can make our programs more accessible to our grantees, our members, and our AmeriCorps senior volunteers. The theme for today's discussion is honoring our ancestors through service. And I am proud that many AmeriCorps projects and programs help to turn this honor into action. I think about the Navajo Foster Grandparents Program, which just celebrated 58 years. And as a part of its language preservation goal, the program requests material in Navajo. I also think about my trip to the Zuni Pueblo last year, where I had the opportunity to visit with elders serving as foster grandparents and senior companions. I was graciously welcomed into the homes of the people that were receiving companion care. They told me how senior companions are their lifelines to their communities. It was also beautiful to see the intergenerational families in service and action, and to witness so many retired foster grandparents and senior companions who are now being served by the next generation, which was beautiful to see this circle and how we take care of one another. I also think about our trip this past summer to Alaska, where I met with Alaska Native corporations, tribes, and communities in Anchorage, Fairbanks, Bethel, and Scammon Bay. I think all of you have heard me talk about this before, but if you haven't, it was an amazing week. It was stunning views. It was unending hospitality and a couple very, very small airplanes. But that trip reinforced an important lesson. AmeriCorps is and can be a good partner. However, tribes and indigenous people know what's best for their community, whether that's teaching language and culture or salmon fishing and moose hunting. In Alaska, tribal leaders graciously reminded me that partnerships aren't just about what AmeriCorps can provide to tribes, but what also we can learn and gain from our relationships with indigenous peoples and Native nations. I think of a couple incidents when we were in Alaska. One, there was an outside group that we work with that was coming and talking to some tribal leaders about STEM programming. And someone pulled me aside after saying, do you know what it feels like to be told that you want to bring an outside group to teach us science and technology when we have been scientists and technologists since time immemorial? And that was so important to think about. Or I think about meeting with the village council presidents when I said, we want to help you. And the leader of that organization said, no, we want to help you. And, as much as I thought I was going into this relationship with an open mind, wanting to figure out how to move resources, I had to pause and really sit with how we can make sure that this is a true partnership and not just coming in with us thinking we're going to do something for or to a community. That visit in Alaska really hit home how deeply people are already invested in their communities and how they already engage in community service activities without any financial benefit. And so we need your support and thinking through ways that we can be better partners in these spaces so that people who are volunteering can also access AmeriCorps benefits like living allowances, volunteer stipends, and education awards. The folks that we met in Scammon Bay would already be doing these things, and we can bring in our resources to make that a bit easier and also to usher in the next generation of folks who will be doing this vital service for their community. So this month and the months and years to follow, my hope is that AmeriCorps can continue to be a tool, not only to help address challenges in Indian country, but also to support the preservation and revitalization of language, culture, traditions, and to build a sense of belonging that supports generations to come. So thank you again for everyone who showed up today, and thank you in advance for the way that you will continue to show up in the months, weeks, and years ahead. I will now turn it back over to Cecilia.
Thank you so much, Alvin and Michael. It's always great to hear from you guys. We truly appreciate your leadership. Next up, I am so excited for this following agenda item, where we'll get a chance to hear directly from Native AmeriCorps alumni, Geraldine, Natasha, and Jonathan, along with Native AmeriCorps senior volunteer William. Leading this panel discussion are Vivian and Paula, who are incredible members of our leadership team here at Native and Indigenous Leaders at AmeriCorps. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm passing it over to Paula now.
Okay, thank you, Cecilia. Finally found my unmute button. Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join this space to honor our ancestors. My name is Paula Van, and I'm a tribal member of the Sisseton Wahpeton, located in the northeast corner of South Dakota. I currently reside in Lawrence, Kansas with my family. I am a portfolio manager in the North Central region, and I'm excited to hear from our alumni panel today. And I will pass it to Vivian to introduce herself.
Thank you, Paula. I'm Vivian Aguilar. I'm an intern with the Strategic Partnerships team at AmeriCorps. I'm calling from Riverbank, California, and I'm of African American and Asian descent. This event's theme of honoring our ancestors is significant for me because through remembering and recognizing the resilient actions of my ancestors, I'm able to derive strength and inspiration from them. Especially when times get rough, I think of them and remember that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. So I'm pleased to be here, and I now have the honor to introduce our panel speakers. I'm joined by 3 AmeriCorps alumni and 1 current AmeriCorps volunteer who have made meaningful impacts in their respective communities and continue to demonstrate leadership in their communities and beyond. So here with us today, we have Geraldine Lopez, a member of the White Earth Tribe in central Minnesota. She served as an AmeriCorps member through AMPAC's Home Energy Initiative. Next, we have Latasha Wanika, who's Danae from Window Rock, Arizona. She served with Mobile Green and the Montana Conservation Corps from 2012 to 2016. Our third panelist is Jonathan Arakua, an enrolled member of the Lower Elwha Klalum tribe. He served in the Port Angeles School District AmeriCorps program from 2019 to 2021. And finally, last but not least, our fourth panelist is William Roundwind from Bad River, who serves as a foster grandparent volunteer. We are excited to be with you all today and hear great stories of impact. We'll get started with our first question, which is designed for everyone to speak to. We'll start with Geraldine. So thinking about your time served with AmeriCorps to now, what were some big milestones you've experienced or achieved during your service?
I'd say thinking of some of the big milestones when I served. Well, when I first started, I was really quiet and shy, very Indianish. Really talked. I just would talk to the person training me in. Until now, some of the biggest milestones would be being invited to the Aspen Ideas Climate Summit in Florida last March, and being invited to the White House's first ever climate summit last month would be the biggest ones. And public speaking, I'm not really good at public speaking. So all those brought me out of my shell from being able to speak up more and overcome my Indianishness.
Thank you for sharing that, Geraldine. We appreciate that. So next we'll go to Latasha. Same question, thinking about your time with AmeriCorps to present, what were some of those big milestones you achieved during your service? And how did that lead to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. Hey, everybody. I would say very similar to Geraldine. Quiet person. I feel like I still am. But during my term of service, I feel like I found my passion in my career pathway. At that point in time, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do other than maybe geology. But when I was serving in AmeriCorps, I found tribal youth programming and coordination efforts a key thing. It was amazing to see what work was going on within the Forest Service, as well as where the pitfalls and gaps were when it came to tribal youth engagement and tribal relations. And I felt like right there, it was very intriguing to see the receptiveness from folks within the agency to want to learn about how to better recruit and retain Native American employees, and also to learn about broad Indigenous topics, priority areas. And so I feel during my term of service, that's where my passion grew, and I discovered that that is what I could do as a job. I was not aware of that at all, like working with youth, etc. So I feel that was a big milestone for me to understand and learn. And from that, I feel that just propelled me forward in gaining employment with the Forest Service, as well as working within the youth programming side of things. I work in the Workforce Development Partnership Hub out of the National Partnership Office with the Forest Service. And I feel like that is just straightforward, my passion, what I just mentioned, being able to work on the youth program, specifically the Indian Youth Service Corps, which is recently came out, and being able to help build that foundation, help build those expectations that we want to hold ourselves in the Forest Service accountable when building relationships and partnerships with tribal entities. And so being able to talk to folks and educate them on, we need to do our homework on this and that. And so it's really amazing to see my term of service to where I'm at today. And I feel like if it wasn't for AmeriCorps, I wouldn't be here, honestly, because it was an event I stumbled upon, being able to serve with AmeriCorps. Thank you.
Thank you, Latasha, for sharing that amazing story, and congratulations on those achievements. We'll now turn it over to Jonathan. So same question for you. What were those accomplishments that you achieved during your service?
Thank you for that question. One of the biggest milestones in my service at Port Angeles School District, that I was one of the first Native Americans to serve in our program. It was the first time in probably a few decades that we had a Native person serve in this position. This relationship, we have a relationship between the Lower Elwha Clallam tribe and the Port Angeles School District and the AmeriCorps program. So this was an important time, and it was not very often they had someone local in the program. So that also brought a big accomplishment for the Port Angeles School District. During that time, when I first started my service, COVID hit not too long after. And so we had to go brick and mortar in finding ways to best serve Native youth, because that was the overall expectation when I served, was serving our Native youth. And we have nearly 500 Native youth who are in our Port Angeles School District. So figuring out ways that we can best serve them, working with our Native educators. So those first few, when COVID hit, those first few months in COVID, we were serving meals on the reservation. We set up 3 different spots because our reservation, we have 3 housing areas. So getting meals out, and we were serving over 200 meals a day to our Native youth in the area. In addition to that, we started after, as COVID evolved, we realized that we needed to provide supports to our Native students. They needed some sort of normalcy because there wasn't that with COVID. So we started a learning center. So where we had over 60 Native students coming to a building here on the reservation 5 days a week, from K to 12, getting supports. One of the major accomplishments is we had a student who had all Fs. A week after he started in the learning center that we had, his Fs and Ds went to As and Bs. So those were some of the accomplishments that we had during our time here in AmeriCorps, my time in AmeriCorps. And we had, when I first started, there was about 10 of us that were serving. And then the year after, it got smaller, given COVID and some of the concerns there. So those were some of the accomplishments that we had working in AmeriCorps and working alongside the tribe and the school district. So really I was able to help, be that representative for the tribe, but also working for the school district and AmeriCorps. So those were, really being, I said when I started AmeriCorps, knowing I was the first one, I said I wouldn't be the last, and hoping that we can keep that position, have someone take that position. But since I left, they've had a hard time trying to find somebody. So it's really trying to get that recruitment out. and saying, you know, this position is here, you know, there's a support for education. So in, in a nutshell, those were some of the major accomplishments that I had. I say we because it was a team effort in my time in AmeriCorps. Hotningson, thank you.
Okay, it was very impressive. I think all of our alumni have contributed so much to the work that we do for our communities. So I really feel inspired by the work that you do, and I actually have a ton more questions, but but I'll save that for the Q&A for my. So I'm going to move us over to Mr. William Badrever. The same question for you. What were those big milestones during your years of service?
Well, I was going down to Lincoln Hills. There was a facility for youth that were incarcerated down there. It was a school, and I was going down there to do healing circles with them. And this was just before the pandemic hit, and I got a few sessions in. I was going down there weekly. And one of the things I did with them is, we were making these medicine pouches and giving them those teachings and having them sew these and putting those medicines in there and those prayers. And for me to leave these with them to wear, with those teachings and, them being far from home, that meant a lot for me to be able to give these to them and for them to have these. And then what happened was then the pandemic hit, and I continued that work through Zooms. So what we would do is if I had somebody new that came in, and I would sit with them on a Zoom, and I would sew this and give them the teachings, and then I would mail that to them, and then that would come and they would get that, and then they would put their own prayer in there and they would wear that. And we would continue weekly Zooms still, and there was a young man that he did really well, and he looked forward. He never missed. Every time I had a Zoom with him, he was always there waiting for me and very eager, wanting to learn any stories, anything I had to tell him. And then he graduated and he invited me, and I attended his graduation by Zoom. And, it was like watching a grandson for me. And that was really, really a milestone for me to see that. I was really proud for that young man. And then also there was, I did a workshop with other youth in a winter camp, and we were making these, and one of the young girls, she came up to me, and we made one for her, and then she wanted to make another one. And I said, well, yeah, you can make another one, and she said, well, she wanted to make one for her grandma was sick. So then I thought, this is truly, we call them, medicine pouch. Well, that was truly medicine. She wanted to give that to her grandmother. And so these are, this is, you never know what these kids are going through. This is sometimes very serious business. And those are the things that really touch me, when we're able to do that with them. Which
Excellent. Thank you, William, for being an empowering example for youth and young women and men. So moving on to our next segment of questions, we're going to ask each of you a question that takes us deeper into your work, aspirations, and motivations. We'll start again with Geraldine. So we know that you're involved in inspiring the future growth of women and youth in the energy industry. Did your inspiration come from a gap that you saw in the work that you did as an AmeriCorps member, or was it something that came to fruition as you started your own work?
I have a previous history of working in fields that are historically have been male dominated. The AmeriCorps position I applied for was something that interested me since it included a lot of work I have already done like construction, building maintenance, more hands-on approach. And it included work I wanted to do in the future. And you don't see many women in this type of work, and we need more women and youth to get active in this field, since it's for everyone and we will need to be needed by everyone in moving forward. And we all know our youth are passionate about playing a big role in addressing climate change, and we need to make sure that we are being intentional about bringing their voices to the table and incorporating their thoughts and solutions to the overall strategy. And AmeriCorps is one of the big things that I could see them stepping forward and getting into. Not a lot of our youth or a lot of people want to go to college or trade school. They want to like get hands in, because a lot of more people I've met learn from being more hands-on instead of a book and studying. So I think if we bring all their needs, their interests, and their abilities and factor those all in, we can fix the problem and get more people in. Thanks.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Geraldine, especially for highlighting the importance of being intentional about making sure that there's equitable access and opportunities. I'll pass it now to Paula to ask the next question.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Geraldine, for all the work that you do, and highlighting that gap between being male-dominated in the energy industry. So I appreciate that. So my next one, we'll go over to Latasha. So first, I've gone through your biography or your bio, and I noticed that you recognize the history of national parks and how your work has impacted Native communities. And can you share the pivoting moment you decided for yourself? And you mentioned that in your earlier comment, to stay with the U.S. National Forest, or you also mentioned in your bio that you were interested in taking back the space for natives in the National Forest. So I was just curious about what that meant for you, and if you could share that with the group, with us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so working with the U.S. Forest Service, it's very intriguing. I still hesitate and pause when I do my introductions when I'm working with tribal nations or tribal organizations, because it does feel odd to say, hi, I work for the federal government. Let's work together, see how we can work together, given the history and the continued colonialist mindset. And I feel like for me, that pivotal moment to stay or to join the U.S. Forest Service was seeing the lack of communication, the lack of cultural sensitivity, but also the opportunity to be able to bring forth the knowledge of tribal relations, hot topics into leadership positions and meetings, et cetera, to be able to educate folks and be in the know of current projects that may affect Native communities within the agency, and being able to be that voice, to at least be that person to raise their hand, like, hey, have you guys talked to the tribe yet? Have you considered this? Have you considered this cultural aspect to it all? Do you have that mindset of these are the ancestral homelands of these particular tribes? And to be able to bring that up with people who are the decision makers, I felt like was a big influential aspect and a space for me to be able to give back to the community. And also to, in that same respect, to provide opportunities, and like folks mentioned before, having that equitable access to youth programming, specifically like employment opportunities and education opportunities, if folks so choose that pathway, and being able to have that voice of identifying those barriers for youth compared to some other youth programs, because a lot of our youth really want to stay connected to the culture. They have ceremonies going on during the field season, and we really want to make sure they're still connected to that. And so being able to help build programs and help identifying those key things where we can accommodate and bring into the program itself holistically, and being very intentional about building different programs for youth. I feel that was a very pivotal moment for me to be able to, no, I feel like this is my place to be able to have that voice, take back that space within that federal government mindset. And I feel that it's a lot of foundational building, and also kind of breaking silos within the agency, because everybody is focused in on their own program area, fire, timber, wildlife, etc. But I want to be able to bring all those together and have folks change their perspective and mindset to have that holistic purview and conceptual mindset, rather than just do the work, get it done, report the accomplishments, get more funding. So I feel that that's been kind of my space in taking back that area for Natives. Thank you.
Thank you, Latasha. I really appreciate that. And especially what you said about having that colonialist mindset and thinking about the colonization of our tribal lands, going to the national forest without permission from the tribal folks that had already existed within those areas. And the lack of communication, education, and opportunities for tribal communities. So I appreciate the work that you're doing in this area. So I think it's very important for all of us to hear this. I'll pass it to you, Vivian. Thank you.
So our next question is for Jonathan. So speaking for those in the audience, what are things we can do to advance advocacy efforts in making sure that Native American history is taught from the Native perspective in public schools throughout the US, and ensure an equitable and inclusive educational system for Native American students?
Sounds familiar. Thank you for that question. So I currently work as a language teacher for my tribe. And one of our major steps, one of our projects that's at the forefront is getting tribal history curriculum in our schools. There's a state law requiring this, Senate Bill 5433 through Washington State, that requires tribal history to be taught in our public schools across the state. So really it's important for school districts, institutions to work in consultation with tribal nations. The educational system as we see it now is a commodified educational system. It doesn't accurately represent our tribal peoples, but it's important for school districts to consult their local tribes. Out of, there's 574 federally recognized tribes. It's very hard for school districts to miss them. So really it's working with those tribes to ensure that the needs are in place and the curriculum as the tribe sees fit. At home, the Port Angeles School District and the Lower Elwha Clallam tribe have a memorandum of understanding between our two parties. There, we set the goals and the commitments, and part of that is having our own educators, our own subject matter experts to go into the schools. And that's as a result of the Senate Bill 5433 for Washington State. 2005, it was recommended to have tribal history. 10 years later, 2015, it's required. So that's an act of equity. When I first started at Port Angeles School District, I got an invite to take part in the equity team that was being formed to formulate an equity policy. I said, well, you can't have equity without consulting our tribes. You can't have equity without teaching our history. Otherwise, this equity work means nothing to me. So this is something that right after I ended my term with AmeriCorps, I started working for the tribe. And now a lot of the teachers who were my teachers now have to work with me to ensure that the curriculum is being implemented and I always tell our school district that they don't own our curriculum. They don't own our materials. That's our intellectual property, and we'll do all our best to protect that property. And I'll always tell our school district leaders, teaching our history is non-negotiable. So these are some of the things that we have been able to do. And something I'm pushing for at the federal level is that possibly through the Congress, through our Common Core standards, that tribal history is a requirement for our students. Because if we don't learn our history, we're going to repeat it. In order to create that future, we have to learn our history. So that is just a gist of what we can do. You know, it's really working with those tribes, consulting with the tribes and getting their consent. Consent is the next part of that consultation. You know, we can't misrepresent our tribes. We can't misrepresent that history, and we can't hurt our students because we're teaching the wrong history. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and especially for bringing attention to how we cannot have equity without consulting tribes, and making sure that they're in the conversation at every step. And I'll now pass it back to Paula.
Mr. William, we do have a question for you. Kind of close us out of the panel, but we were interested in when we had gone through your bio and the work that you currently do, we were wondering what advice would you give to AmeriCorps members and staff to self-care, to promote and practice self-care?
Oh, well, self-care to me, you know, I think we're all on our own healing journey. You know, that's what I consider myself, even as an elder, that I'm still healing from a lot of different things in my life and historical trauma, things that, you know, even what my grandparents and great-grandparents went through. And so you develop your own personal, what I call medicine toolkit, and that can be different, and it can be different things at different times. Different things will work for you. For myself, I like to do gardening in the summertime, which, you know, now it's kind of over with, but being outside, going to look for, you know, different medicine plants, berries, things like that. When I'm able to, I like to be outside, being with the water, being in the woods with the trees. Those are things that are healing for me. But also in the winter time, then a lot of different meditation, breathing exercises, attending ceremonies. A lot of times if like I do a lot of healing circles and talking circles, and you don't want to bring in a lot of those problems and leave with those things, you know, so that's where the drum comes in. So you attend these ceremonies and, you know, the drum takes that away, you know, and smudging, things like that. Attending ceremonies to recharge yourself that way. Socialization, sometimes laughter. So I go to the elderly for lunch, elderly center, and I sit with my peers, and we, you know, after lunch, we sit there and we laugh for, sometimes we're there for another hour after lunch is over, still sitting there laughing and talking. And I think sometimes the staff is wondering, when are those old people going to leave? We're still sitting there. And that's good. You know, sometimes you want to be alone too, you know, so it's different things at different times. You got to find those things that work for you, but you got to remember that you got to do something, you know, You always got to find healing things for yourself. And there'll be different things, different times. Which
Thank you. So I want to thank our panelists for sharing your amazing stories. I certainly appreciate the work that you do for Indian country, and I'm certainly leaving this panel inspired by the work that you continue to do. So I feel like there's more to be said here with everything that you do, but I am going to turn it back over to Cecilia to moderate the questions that might have come through. So if you I'm gonna pause for a minute and have Cecilia come on.
Wow. Thank you guys so much for that incredible conversation and for being so vulnerable and knowledgeable and sharing that in this space. Because of the sake of time, we are going to have to skip the Q&A session, but I will post in the chat our Native American Affairs email. If you have any follow-up questions or want to get a hold of us in any shape or form, you can reach us at that email. And I'm going to pass it over to Brooke at this point in time.
Well, hello, my friends and relatives. I am Brooke Crosby, Special Assistant for Native American Affairs. I am from the Lummi Nation. I'm the daughter of Renee Swanwaite, the granddaughter of Norma Bossler, and the great-granddaughter of Christine Victor of the Quina family. Thank you, AmeriCorps leadership, Mike Garcia, and our amazing panelists for your words, your stories, and your inspiration. Your stories energize me to do the work. We are so honored that we have partners that have joined us from all over the country today. I want to acknowledge the path that brought me to this time and place and recognize that I stand on the shoulders of those who came before. I honor their resiliency, their foresight, and their preparation for the 7 generations. They created the way for us to be here today. We have had the chance to meet with program directors and alumni from across Indian country, and we are truly amazed. Thank you for your partnership. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for challenging us as an agency to uphold our federal trust responsibility. As we celebrate our 30-year anniversary, we want to hear your service stories. Our Indian country stories are important and we need to share them. We want to share them. I want to share them. Please send them. We'll drop a link in the chat to share your story with us. Thank you for joining us, and please take a moment to enjoy this video celebrating Native and Indigenous AmeriCorps partners across Indian country.
All right, folks, this concludes our signature event. This was an incredible and inspiring experience. My heart is so full and such a beautiful way to celebrate not just this month, but every month the remarkable work of national service that is being done across Indian country, recognizing the remarkable diversity of Native cultures, stories, peoples, while remembering and honoring the strength and guidance of our ancestors. I want to express my immense gratitude to everyone who made this event possible, and thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our time together, and we look forward to the horizons of our future. Happy Native American Heritage Month, everyone. Bye. Stay safe.